I love education. I love understanding. And as we go ahead, as we look at the life of Christ, it's mentioned 41 times about him being called rabbi or teacher or master. This all means the same words. Jesus was a rabbi to these people. He was a teacher to the people of Israel there. And he went ahead and he called them to a marvelous truth that they had never heard, that they had never seen, and he kind of put it together. Here we see in John chapter 1 there, it talks about even Nathanael. He went ahead and he called him rabbi. John chapter 1 verse 49, Nathanael there called him rabbi. 41 times Jesus was referred to rabbi, teacher, master. One time he was mentioned as a carpenter. We see that as he began his ministry and got himself disciples, each one of them, they saw him as a teacher, but a different teacher than what they had come to know. So in our study today, we want to talk about what it means to be a true disciple. A disciple is somebody who actually follows a rabbi. That's what they call a disciple. We have within the scriptures there, we see John himself. He was a rabbi. He also had disciples, John the Baptist we're talking about. But here Christ is talking about that they search the scriptures, for in them they think you have eternal life, but they are they which testify of me, in John 5:39. When we talk about that each and every one of us, we have entered into the school of Christ. We've entered into the school of Christ, and the subject that each and every one of us is learning is the science of salvation. That's the science that you're learning. How people are saved. How people are saved. How you're saved and how you're going to go forth and to save others. And this subject is, like I say, a very deep subject, very important subject. We have to try to see that in education, it was very important at the time of Christ. And so, first of all, I want to look at the time of Christ, what education was like back then, and to look about how Christ educates us today. Back then, basically, a young boy at the age of 6, until he came to the age of 6, it was said, that one rabbi said, under the age of 6, we do not receive a child as a pupil. But from 6 upwards, we received him and stuff him with the Torah like an ox. We stuff him, all right? Now, at that time, at the age of 6, this primary grade, it was called Beth Safar. That was the name of the Hebrew word. That was the school. That was the elementary school. And a child went there from the age of 6 through 10 years old, a young boy went. Now, there were some that were actually homeschooled, and all the girls were homeschooled. And before you get upset, we have to see at the very end, at the cross, we have 3 Marys there, and then John the Beloved, so it looked like homeschool did very well, all right? Homeschool did very well. And also, we know that through what God has given us, even the school of the prophets that Elijah and Elisha had established, we're told here, there was never a need for the school of the prophets. It was never God's design to have one. But because the parents had failed to educate their children, Elijah felt that, he just couldn't leave the children of Israel without caring for them. And so they established these schools. But we see that here, at this time, here we had all these young boys that they would enter into Beth Shafar. And their first day of school, they would enter and they would come in and they would go ahead, they would find there would be a desk there. And on the desk, there would be a tablet, a stone tablet, and there would be a jar of honey there, a jar of honey. And the rabbi there would tell him, okay, now I want you to go ahead to dip your finger there into the honey there and just put it all over the tablet. Now, of course, at that time, honey, like today, it was very sweet and it was like candy to them. They really, really enjoyed that they got to go ahead, they got to slap on the honey on the tablet there. And then the rabbi would say, now I want you to go ahead and I want you to lick it off. And they went ahead, and all the young boys, their first day of school, they were licking honey off the tablet. And after they finished, the rabbi would say, quoting Psalms 119, verse 103, "How sweet are thy words unto my taste, yea, sweeter than honey to my mouth." And that's what the blessing was. They desired that the word of the Lord would be a great blessing to them, would be as sweet as honey to them. Now, for the next 5 years, they were going to have to memorize the Torah, the first 5 books. 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 years old, they had to memorize the Torah. The first 3 years, they actually sung it. The rabbi taught them as they sung it, this very similar, the same way. Sometimes we teach the ABCs, A, B, C, D, and we start singing them, but they were actually singing the Torah there. Now, they had other assignments. They learned math and they learned history and things like this, but the scriptures was the center of all their education, which it should be. Sometimes we look at the scriptures as being an elective, but here, this was it. And, in Deuteronomy, it talks about in Deuteronomy 6, it wasn't just the Pharisees, not the Pharisees, the rabbis, in instructing them. In Deuteronomy 6, it talked about the parents, talking about their children. When you stand and when you walk and when you're, by the way, you go ahead and you instruct them. And so the whole family was learning the Torah all together, all at once. Well, this was the time of Christ. And you're wondering, how could they have missed Jesus? How could they have missed them? They memorized the first 5 books of the Bible. Memorized. At 10 years old, they had a graduation. Now, I want you to imagine this type of graduation. You got to invite people. And your family was there. And the next instructor, or what we call like middle school, the next instructor, he had it was called, the middle school was called Beth Talmud, and this is where they would go ahead, and he would go ahead and he would give the test for the class. He would give the test, and he would show up on graduation, and he would go ahead and he would call the little boys. And he would call them, and basically what he would do, he would start anywhere in the Torah, and he would just quote a verse, and the young boy was supposed to go ahead from that verse and just repeat. Just go ahead by rote. Just actually went ahead and just from his memorization, go ahead and just kept on going. Now, when the rabbi felt that, hey, he either knew it or he didn't know it, he would go ahead and he would stop. Okay? And as he would go ahead, he would stop. If the young man, if the young boy, if he went ahead and he did great, he passed and he knew he had memorized that part of that scripture that he had told them to do, he would say, "Lakakarai," which means, "Come, follow me." And so the little boy would get up, and he would, in front of everybody, in front of his family, in front of the neighbors, he had passed. If the young boy, if he didn't pass, the rabbi would say, "You're not going to be a rabbi. Go learn your family's trade, and may your son become a rabbi." And so right in front of everybody, he was removed from school. Removed from school. Now, in our next Beth Talmud, we have the young boy, which was now 11, 12, and 13 years old, Beth Talmud. This is where they actually had to memorize now all the way from Joshua all the way there to Malachi. They had to memorize that. They sang it the first year, and the next 2 years, they went ahead and memorized. Some of them, like I said, they were already involved. And in 1 year, they had memorized all the Old Testament by heart. Not only that, it was a time where the actual rabbis would actually teach them to go ahead and be able to answer questions. Before it was, like the scripture says, it was line upon line. But now they went in Beth Talmud, they went into precept upon precept. And the rabbi would go ahead and be able to ask questions and to be able to go ahead and to answer. They would give them a whole list of items to go ahead and to memorize too. Name all those times sin is mentioned in the book of Isaiah. And boom, 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 boom. They would go ahead and they mentioned it 23 times. Right? The memories there of these young children. Now, this is where we see in the temple, Jesus now is at that age. And of course, during the feast, he went ahead and he sat there and he went and he listened. He listened, and here in Luke 2:46 it says, "And it came to pass that after 3 days they found him in the temple sitting in the midst of the doctors, both hearing them and asking them questions." What a blessing it was. It said that the questions that Christ had answered, the questions that he went ahead and he actually put to the doctors, it could have caused a great reform at that time. What a blessing it was. And it says even his parents, they heard the questions and how he was answering, how he was asking. He wasn't like the other rabbis, because the other rabbis, they would go ahead and they would put their other students up in front, trying to go ahead and trying to have them to outdo the other rabbis and memorize more and things like this. We have now, at that time, they also had a graduation, right? At 13 years old. Once again, the whole scriptures was the center of their education. And the same rabbi, Beth Talmud, the same rabbi that taught that class, would go ahead and he would ask them, he would go ahead, he might start up in, the book of Psalms and go ahead and just give a verse. And the young boy was supposed to go ahead and to, once again, recite. They knew the book of Isaiah by heart. Ezekiel, all these Psalms, Proverbs, absolutely memorized. They could ask him any questions. Start off in the beginning of Genesis and tell me every time, like I say, the word, God is even being mentioned. And they would go ahead and they would give the list. Now, once again, during the test, if the young student passed, the instructor would say, go ahead, find yourself now a rabbi. Go find yourself a rabbi. And if the child didn't pass, maybe, he had problems with Proverbs, didn't understand, he would tell him once again, I'm sorry, you're not going to be a rabbi. Go learn your father's trade, go learn your family's trade, and may your son become a rabbi, right? Now, of course, when you see the life of Christ here, where were Peter and Andrew? Where were James and John? They were kind of about their father's trade, right? Okay, so, to them, they would only look for the best of the best, right? But the third part of the training basically dealt with where you actually were with a rabbi and you were actually going about and you were moving. You actually lived with him in his house, and whatever he did, you would do. And he would go ahead and he would give you even further instructions in the law. And as this rabbi, he would go ahead and he would give you different understandings of the law. Now, the rabbi's law, they were called yokes, all right? The rabbis, they would have special yokes. Like, look, on the Sabbath day, you can only travel so far. And another rabbi would say, well, really, you could only travel half that distance because it was going to take you another half to get back. They had all these different little yokes that they would go ahead and they would put on. They would put on, but it was okay. The people, the young boys, this is what they desired. We see the whole Roman system had come over, and the best job, not being a doctor, not being a lawyer, but was to be a rabbi, was to be the teacher. But in Galatians, Paul brings this out. He says, Christ has made us free, not to be entangled again with the yoke of bondage. These little yokes that the rabbis were putting on them. So our question is, how is it that somebody can memorize the whole Old Testament and yet miss Jesus Christ, right? It's talked about in, like I said, Beth Midrash, was that the disciples were supposed to be so close to their rabbis that may you follow your master so closely that you are covered with the dust of his feet. So when he would just, as he would walk and little dust would fall, you'd be so close that the dust would fall on you. That was the desire. But yet they went ahead with all that education. With all that education, they missed Christ. Now, Christ comes onto the scene. The true rabbi, right? The true teacher. The great teacher. And what does he say? Christ sits there and says, Jesus said unto them, Come ye after me, and I will make you fishers of men. And straightway they forsook their nets and followed him. When Jesus called James and John, Peter and Andrew, when Jesus called them, it says they immediately left their nets. Can you imagine your whole life? You had studied, you had memorized, and somehow you had made a mistake, and some rabbi had said, no, I'm sorry, go about your family's business. And now this rabbi comes and says, what? Come, follow me, right? They were so excited. I mean, this was the family's desire that their child would be a teacher, a rabbi. Now, this is kind of interesting because we see Jesus taught so differently. It talks about here in Matthew, Jesus says, take my yoke upon you and learn of me, for I am meek and lowly of heart, and ye shall find rest for your souls. See? Christ's yokes, what were they? They were easy. He wasn't sitting there trying to, okay, here, let's let you memorize this list, Peter. Okay, John, go ahead and you memorize this and memorize that. No, he said what? Come and follow. Look at me, right? See, watch me. See what I'm doing, right? I mean, this is why, they wanted to be so close to Christ to watch everything that he was doing. When they saw Jesus and they saw him casting out demons, he says, Lord, I'm your disciple. I should be able to what? Cast out demons, right? Lord, you're walking on water. I'm your disciple. I should be what? Be able to walk on water. They believed that truly that he was this teacher sent from God. But Christ, he says, you know what? His yoke is easy. His burdens are light. But he himself, he desires to teach each and every one of us. We're told that there has been nobody instructed more in the will of God than you and me. Do you know that? We've been instructed more in the will of God. And I'm wondering, Lord, are we going to miss Christ? Are we going to miss the science of salvation? Are we actually involved in the class and following Christ? This is what each and every one of us, we need to ask ourselves. Let's take a look. Christ, he's going to go ahead, and now we want to go ahead and to apply it to our life. I'm going to go ahead and use the idea of talking about sheep, talking about the disciples, right? In John 10:27, it says, my sheep will hear my voice, and I know them, and they follow me. Right? So the first thing of being a true disciple is that we're following Christ, right? we're following him. Right? He's our great teacher. He's our great teacher. He's our great instructor. And we're listening. We're listening to his words. We watch as we read the scriptures how he acted. It says that he is meek and lowly in spirit. And this is what the Lord desires. It talks about that how important is that we have been instructed more than everyone. The Holy Ghost is the author of the scriptures and of the spirit of prophecy. The Holy Ghost is, right? We've been instructed more. Evangelism talks about here that offering most sweet and acceptable in God's sight is a heart made humble with self-denial by lifting up the cross and following Jesus, right? It's so sweet. You know, are we humbled in our spirit? Are we willing to be true disciples in following Christ? Are we still having our own way? You know, even as we look at the life of sometimes Peter and John and James, we see that Christ did not give up on them being a rabbi. Hey, even though they went the other way, they went this way, he did not give up. He went ahead and he continued to work with them, to educate them. All right? Talking about, number 2, talking about that a sheep will hear his voice. I mean, do you hear his voice? Do you hear the voice? My sheep hear my voice. My sheep hear my voice. It says, in Selected Messages, Book 2, verse 50, it says, page 50, it says, we have unmistakable evidence of the voice of the true shepherd. Unmistakable evidence. If you want to know the voice of the true shepherd, we have unmistakable evidence. It says, he leads the sheep in the path of humble obedience to the law of God. But he never encourages them to transgress that law. See, the law of God is his character. So he leads his path. That path leads to humbly obedience to the law of God. Humbly obedience. I remember I was an elder in the Adventist church. I was an elder down in, I don't know if you know, Mojave, Tehachapi area there. I was an elder in the church there. And I remember the first time someone talked about, he went and shared about the Reform movement. I had never heard of it. And when I went ahead and I read this statement talking about A.G. Daniels, talking about in the book Protocol, this separation which had taken place, and I read it in verse 12. I says, and all that we have said, we show that the Bible teaches firstly that taking part in war is no transgression of the 6th commandment. And likewise, war service on the Sabbath is not a transgression of the 4th commandment. And I heard that, I said, Lord, that's not the voice of my true shepherd. My true shepherd is what? Humbly being obedient. Well, who are these people? You know, sometimes we think we got to have a whole bunch of volumes of trying to convert somebody. No, conversion will take place when what? They're humbly obedient. They're able to listen to the voice of God. You know, God has given us a message. It might just be 2 or 3 that are gathered in his name. But his sheep will hear his voice. His sheep will know that the law of God is a transcript of his character. And that character needs to be what? It's written in our hearts, in our minds, to follow on, to get to know him. Number 3, it says, the sheep enter the door. And it says, I am the door, and by me, if any man enter in, he shall be saved, and shall go in and out and find pasture. So here we have this idea of the door. It says, if we enter into the door, we shall be saved. I tell you, this is the 5-star. If you're going to write anything down today, you better, because it says if you enter this door, you're going to be saved. You know, we're talking about how simple salvation is. You got to enter through the door. Do you understand? You can't go in another way. There's no salvation. I mean, people will hop in this way. But if you desire to be saved, I mean, this is, like I say, This is the science of salvation. This is true education. This is in the school of Christ. If you desire to be saved, you have to enter into this door, right? What is the door, right? What is the door? Well, the door is Jesus. But what about Jesus? What about Jesus? See, a door, we have to see a door there's two sides, right? There's like this door here. We have the outside, we have the inside, right? We have a door there. So in some way, Jesus is the door. Some way he was outside and he went ahead and he came inside, right? But we got to go back the other day. We have to enter into that door. What it's basically talking about here is that Christ, we have to understand that Christ was ever much the Godhead. He was God, right? And he was on that side. He went through the door. He partook of humanity. You understand? That's the door. He partook of humanity, that we ourselves, being human, we can partake of his divinity and be saved. If you do not partake of the divinity of Christ, you have no salvation. It's not a church that saves, right? It's Jesus Christ that saves. You understand that? Now the church is to uplift Christ, that all men will be drawn unto him and to be saved, but Jesus is the Savior, right? Jesus is the Savior. There's no other name in heaven, that we must be saved, but by Jesus Christ alone. And Jesus is saying, I am this door. I have partake of divinity and humanity, and with my divinity, you can be saved. Let's make sure here's our quote. There's a couple more, but we'll just use this one. It says, the only way which salvation could be provided for man was through the union of divinity with humanity, right? The only way. If Jesus just stayed God, just stayed there in heaven, we could not be saved. Do you understand that? There was no salvation. He had to partake of humanity. Christ in human nature alone could bridge the gulf that sin had made. Right? This is true education. This is the science of salvation, entering through that door to be saved, partaking of that divine nature. And that's found in 2 Peter 1:4, whereby are given unto us exceeding and great precious promises, that by these you might be partakers of the divine nature, having escaped the corruption that is in the world through lust. Right? Only by partaking of that divine nature are you going to be saved. And this has to be our message, brothers and sisters. This is what makes us different. This is what makes us that we're willing to go ahead and to not to break the commandments of God, but be obedient to the commandments of God. By beholding Christ, we become changed. Amen. Number 4, our last thing we're going to go ahead and look at. It says, the sheep, talking about the sheep in John 10:9, it says, I am the door, and by me, if any man enter in, he shall be saved, and shall go in and out, and find pasture. And so the idea is that the sheep go in and out. It's the working of the sheep going in and out that we might be saved. And what does it mean to go in and out? It means that not only are we come into the church today, we come into the flock today and we receive a great blessing. We receive a great blessing, whether it be in Sabbath school, going over the life there of Achan, understanding the importance that even one known sin can remove us. But Christ didn't come to condemn, right? Did Christ come to condemn? No. He came to save. He came to save. He came in humanity to save us, right? That we might partake of his divinity. It says the life of the church depends on the interest which its members manifest in those outside her fold. Let the church of God remember that Christ gave himself as the sacrifice to save a world from destruction. So here, the life of the church The life of the church depends upon what? Our interest, which our members manifest, those outside the fold. You know, how are we working for those outside the fold? You know, it's very sad because sometimes, like I say, you know, sometimes we put up a lot of money, you know, to do certain works and stuff like that, and we're not even interested. A lot of people, they say, well, Mike, I'm here, I got to save my family first, you know. And I always say, well, you know, the family is kind of like your tithe. You know, that's already a given, if you know what I mean. We already know that you're going to save for family. But the question is, you know, the Lord loves a cheerful giver, right? Well, how are you manifesting of those outside your fold? How are you touching those ones outside your fold? I love doing these type of things where you get to go to these little health fairs. This was an expo down in Tulare. You know, we usually go down there, and you know, it's always good to go ahead and do these expos where you actually get to go ahead and you actually get to meet people. You get to meet people. We have the books that are out there. We have literature. We have health tracks and different things like this. And people come up. You know, we're giving them away free. People come up. I mean, there could be, you know, 100 people go by, and maybe 7 of them will come over. Well, that's fine. No, there's 7 people that are actually interested in the material. And this way we get a chance, because they're already interested, even to pick up the material or to go ahead and to talk with us. And you know, and it's an amazing, it gives us a chance. Like I say, we're going in and out of the fold. It gives us a chance to talk to the people and to encourage the people. You know, and just last month we were up there, and sometimes, like I say, in the health fairs, you know, we've done blood pressure checks, we've just handed out books, and basically talked and things like this. And I always believe that, like I say, if you want to know how the church is, just look how the church is manifesting itself outside the fold, right? And that's what we need to ask. It's easy to have the church filled up on Sabbath, but what are we doing outside the fold? You know, I was even this last February, or just this last month, you know, here our books were out and everything was there, and this guy came by and he says, do you know the Seventh-day Adventist Church is a cult? You know? Oh, that's what he said. Do you know the Seventh-day Adventist Church is a cult? Now, how would you answer him, right? See, and this is where it gives us time to go ahead and you get the practice, right? I mean, people, not everybody's just happy. Some people want to just go ahead and let you know exactly. They want to tell you who you are. And I told him, I said, you know, can you tell me, what is your description of a cult? I mean, what does a cult mean to you? You know, and he thought for a while. He couldn't come up with something. I said, well, do you think a cult might be described as somebody that Satan has this group of people, that Satan is leading this group of people, they're followers of Satan? He says, oh, yes. I said, okay, so Satan is leading this church. He says, yep, Satan is leading this church. I said, you know, so we're listening to, the devil has control of us, right? Yep. I said, well, you know, it was kind of interesting because, and you go to the book of John, the Gospel of John. I said, chapter 7, 8, and 9. You know, I said, did you know they actually called that Jesus was of the devil too? Did you see that? Jesus is of the devil, right? He says, yeah. And I said, now, what did Jesus say to him? What did Jesus say? Jesus says, what commandment am I breaking? That's what he asked. What commandment am I breaking? If I am of the devil, what commandment am I breaking? Now, it's really nice because we were handing out those 10 commandment tracts. I could actually point, these little charts that are out there. I pointed. I said, that's what he's asking. Which commandment am I breaking? And it says they were quiet. And I said, well, so I ask you, which commandment am I breaking? Right? Which commandment am I breaking here? Now, Jesus told them, no, you're of your father, the devil. Because he was a murderer and he was a liar. And guess what? You seek to kill me, right? So it proves you're breaking the commandments. I'm not talking to him. I'm talking, like I say, Jesus was responding to the Pharisees and Sadducees at that time, saying, well, no, those that are breaking the law of God are the ones that are actually, being led by Satan. We want to be obedient. See, but as you get a chance to meet these people, you get a chance to talk. Talk to them. Another guy, he came up to me and he was saying, he was an Adventist. He came up and he said, are you ready? I says, ready for what? Are you ready? I said, well, okay, what am I supposed to be ready for? He said, National Sunday Law is about to come. I said, really? I said, well, we need to be ready every day because the National Sunday Law is for those people who haven't had a chance to hear it. It's for them. We need to be ready for the total outpouring, the fullness of the outpouring of the latter rain. We have drops of it today. We can pray on a daily basis, asking for the Holy Spirit. That's what we need to be. We need to be praying because he was saying, I've already got my bunker up in the mountains and I got food up there and I've got, he was telling me all this stuff that he was ready. I says, our job is going to go ahead. We have this last outpouring of the Holy Spirit that we can go ahead and finish and touch the rest of the souls that haven't had a chance to go ahead and to hear the message. That's the job that God has given to us, right? And so as we go ahead and we meet these people, I could spend here all day just talking about everybody. But I'll do one more before we, this one lady, I could call her a young lady. Here I am, she was like 40 years old, but a young lady, okay, to not today. But she was there and she was standing back like this and she was looking at the books and I said, no, can I help you? She says, I'm Mormon. I'm like, oh, okay, all right. And I says, okay, that's good. So you got to meet all type. You got to be able. And this is what, like I say, when you deal with the science of salvation, you have to deal. What's science all about? Experiment. You have an experimental knowledge on how to go about and to talk with these people, right? Our job is not just to sit there and just to take a bunch of this truth and just slam it at them. No, to make them to take another step to Christ, to show them we're humble, right? We're of good spirit, like Christ was. To share with them a truth to help them to take another step to get to know Jesus. But she was standing and she was like, I'm Mormon. And I'm like, okay. So I asked her, I said, well, have you been Mormon for a long time? Because all this time you're constantly praying. Because anytime you're talking to somebody, you're praying because the Holy Spirit wants to use, but all you are is the instrument, right? Let the Holy Spirit, because you don't even know what you're going to say. Lord, what would you want me to say? But I said, well, have you been Mormon a long time? She says, Mormon my whole life. I said, well, and your parents, my parents are Mormon, and I'm fourth generation. I said, well, I know a lot of, okay, so you really know. You really know. And he says, yep, I'm Mormon. And I said, can you take 10 minutes of your time and, can you go through Mormon eschatology for me? Start right now today. I'm just going to sit here and you just tell me how the world's going to end. Just tell me how the world's going to end. And she says, I don't know. I said, I don't know. I said, no, tell me. We got the beast, we got the mark of the beast, we got Jesus coming. Tell me how the world's going to end. I don't know. A lot of people, they don't even know what, like I say, they're in churches, they have no idea. They don't know. But I went ahead and I could see within her countenance that she was, like, oh boy, I don't even know how to answer this person, But I went ahead and I said, look, you are here, you were looking for something. What were you looking for? And she said, that her brother had just died. And so she was looking, she was wondering, do you have something, about death? What happens to when somebody dies, right? And so I went ahead and I got a little tract. I gave it to her and I explained, hey, this is something and here's our number on the back and like I say, just enough to go ahead and to reach her and to touch her and to answer her questions. Let the Holy Spirit do the work. It says most of the work that we do, most of the books that we give out, I think we gave out hundreds. We even got these little squeezy balls. We gave out 700, some odd, a lot of these things just to go ahead and to get them out. And most of the literature, we're told that in that day, that day when it comes about that, the whole thing comes and what I want to talk about, when the crisis comes, that a lot of them will go ahead and take those books and they'll start to read them, maybe even for the first time. So our job is to, like we studied in, like last week, talking about Joshua, how Joshua, he just keep on circling circling Jericho. That's our job. Keep on circling Sacramento. Keep on circling it. Get the information out, right? Be obedient to what God has claimed, God has desired upon us. See, so true education today. Yes, it was a great blessing. They went ahead and they memorized the scriptures, but they lost Jesus Christ. We ourselves, we've been educated so much, but yet that education requires a responding work, right? A responding work on each and every one of our part. It requires an experimental work. Talking with people, sharing with people, Lord, getting that last message of mercy out to these people. So I pray and hope that when we think about education, we think about the educational department, Jesus is still the great rabbi, right? He's still the great teacher. Come unto him, right? Now we might have under teachers and things like this, but Christ is the great teacher. And each and every one of you, he doesn't say, go about your family's business. He says, no, come unto me, right? I'm meek and lowly of heart, and you can find rest for your soul. So my prayer for each and every one of us here is once again to go back to school, right, with Jesus Christ. Amen.
The mission and passion of 21st Missionary is sharing a clear and engaging gospel. Like and subscribe to watch more messages like this one. Thank you.